We're talking today with Paul Rose of Grand Haven, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, Paul, start us off with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
Okay, well, I was born here in Grand Haven. Born January 29, 1931. I'm older than Hill.
All right.
But other than that, then I lived all the time in Grand Haven except for 2 years, and I went in the Army.
All right. Now, while you were growing up, what was your family doing for a living?
My dad used to work for the telephone company, which I did too.
Okay.
And my brother and my brother-in-law. And we all part of the phone company.
Okay. And, now, back in the 1930s, when you were young, do you know if your father had steady work or just worked part-time?
No, he worked steady. He worked full-time. In fact, I've got a picture of him here someplace that he was the first and only telephone man in Grand Haven. And I never knew that until I saw that picture and read what they printed by it. You know, I didn't know that he was the only telephone man.
Okay. Well, now, was he stringing wires or running the operation, or?
No, outside.
Okay.
Put telephone wires up, climbed poles, and did about everything that there was to do in the phone company. He did.
Okay. Yeah. They kind of probably needed to have someone doing that even during the Depression.
Oh yeah.
So you got it. Okay. How many kids were in your family?
4.
Okay. And where were you in line?
Well, right now I'm the youngest and the oldest, and the only one.
Okay. But did you have older brothers or?
Two older brothers and this older sister.
Okay.
And but I was the tail end of because there was about how many years? 6 or 8 years difference between my sister and I, because they say I was a mistake.
There you go. Okay. Now, did you finish high school?
Yes.
Okay. What year did you graduate?
49.
Okay. And what did you do after you got out of high school?
Well, I started right after I graduated. I started working for the city of Grand Haven, and I worked in the street department, drove truck, and all that stuff. And then I got a job part-time in the fire department, and I was what they call a sleep-in. They go there 2 or 3 nights a week and just to sleep, fill a bed. And so that took care of that for quite a while.
Okay. Now, just to back up a little bit, you were still pretty young when World War II was happening, but do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. We were over at friends of our house on a Sunday. We were over to her house for dinner, and my oldest brother was there too, and she had a big one of these old floor model radios, and she had that thing turned on, and all of a sudden it come out, the president come on there, said the Japanese just bombed Pearl Harbor. And boy, I looked at my brother and I thought, oh, and he just looked at that radio and he sat there kind of glued to it, and next day he went down and enlisted in the Army Air Force. So, but that was where we heard about it. It was pretty, well, we don't want to say recent or not recent, happy.
Yeah.
But he enlisted, and it wasn't long after that my next brother, then he went in, and so it left me alone. I didn't have any brothers around here then, and my oldest brother, when he went through training in Texas for 3 or 4 different places for taking aircraft training. And then he ended up in Alaska flying the Aleutian Islands with supplies.
Okay.
And then my other brother, he ended up in Africa and Europe, and then he got hit with shrapnel, and he was all done.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Okay.
that's,
All right. So while the war was going on, were you following the events pretty carefully, or just doing your own thing?
not my own thing then, because I was too young to think about what was going on, and I thought I was too young to even try and enlist,
Mm-hmm.
because I was only a kid,
Right.
and so I just kind of let it go, and and paid attention to what I read in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
But then you used to get a letter from my oldest brother, and he says, in the letter he would say, well, so and so, he bought the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what's that mean? I had no idea what that meant till he came home
Mm-hmm.
one time. And he came home that one time, and I asked him what. He says he crashed and got killed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, did that brother eventually get hurt too?
then he got hurt in a plane crash up in Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
and then they shipped him back to Washington State, and then they gave a permit or whatever you want to call it. So my dad and my sister-in-law, that was my brother's wife, they could take a train out there, because during the war, you get on a train, you were lucky you got anywhere, So it happened that they got the train to get out to Washington D.C. or Washington State,
Yeah.
and then they saw my brother, and then they shipped him from there. They shipped him back to Percy Jones in Battle Creek,
Mm-hmm.
and he was there until he got discharged.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but he ended up with a bum leg. His left leg was not much good for anything,
Mm-hmm.
and his flying days were over. He thought. Well, they came up with a new type of airplane that you didn't use your feet for anything. Everything's on the wheel, and so he got in. What the heck's the name of that thing that he had? He bought it, and I flew with him a few times, and but he just accepted what happened. He says, well, so what? I mean,
Yeah.
there's guys worse than me. When we got a permit to go to Battle Creek to get for gas, then we went to Percy Jones, and that's the first time I've ever in my life seen anybody or anything that was banged up like some of these guys were.
Mm-hmm.
Some with no arms, some with no legs, and one guy had a steel plate in his head. And I'll tell you that for a teenage kid to absorb that or see it, it was something different, than what you see nowadays.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but
So you had some awareness of what could go on in a war or what could happen
oh yeah,
yourself. Now, of course, in 1950, the Korean War starts,
right.
and there was a draft on.
Right.
Did you expect that at some point Uncle Sam would call you?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I thought that I'd be one of the early ones, but I didn't think it would be. I'd be one of the later ones, That I was surprised that I was one of the later ones, because the war started in 50 and 51.
Yeah.
And 52, I went in,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of the oldest guys around to go in at that time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because you were 21 at that point.
Yeah,
So okay.
right.
So now, so when did you actually report for duty? When did you go to training?
Well, we left the armory here, went to Battle Creek, went to Fort Custer.
Yeah. Did they do a physical there and swearing in?
No, we had our physical in Detroit.
Okay.
And they took us by bus right over to Fort Custer.
Okay.
And we were there just a weekend, and Sunday night they loaded us on a train, didn't tell us where we were going or anything, but big train, and loaded us up on the train, and they shipped us off, and we didn't, some of us were fortunate enough, we had sleeping quarters, and the ones that didn't have bunks, they had to sit up in the chair all night. And they had taken care of for the whole night. So then they appointed different guys, guard, in case the train caught fire or something. And which I was fortunate enough I didn't get bothered. I got crawled up in my bunk and I stayed there all night. So I got a pretty decent night's rest. But it was interesting because when we got off the train the next morning, we all said about the same time, "Where are we?" "You're in Missouri." We had no idea that where we were going or how we were going to get there or what. But then they had buses right there, and so we got off the train and loaded up on the buses, and away we went down the highway, and they ended up at Fort Leonard Wood, and everybody looked at that and said, "Holy shoot, this is for the birds."
All right. So what did the place look like when you got there?
Clay and rock. That's all. We had wood barracks, and now I heard a few years ago that the whole fort was bulldozed, and they built everything out of brick, brick buildings. And I thought, boy, that's pretty nice, because when we were in there, we had the old coal-fired furnaces for heat, and you smell that gas and comes up the pipes, and oh, geez, that was something else.
Okay. Now, what time of year were you there?
In December.
In December. Okay, so you're there
just before Christmas.
All right.
Because we were stuck there during Christmas and New Year's, and nobody could go home. And boy, I'll tell you, had a lot of homesick kids. I guess you'd call them kids. A lot of homesick kids. Man, they carried on. Sometimes during the night they'd be crying up a storm, and but after a while the Army knew how to take care of most of that by, just be sure you're keeping busy, work, and do things. And I didn't cry about anything, but I was disappointed that I couldn't be home for Christmas. But
Sure. All right. Now, what did the actual training consist of? What did they have you do there?
that was what they call basic training. They mostly march, and you go out to the rifle range, which is about 6 or 8 miles out away from the post, and you walk along, go along there, and you could go into the into the rifle range, and then you'd shoot your rifle and practice with it and whatnot, and then march back into the fort, get cleaned up or take a shower, which you needed, because that clay dust they'd go through anything.
Mm-hmm.
And but they and in the winter time, in December and January, February, never saw any snow, but it was cold, miserable cold.
Right.
And up in the mountains, what was the name of those mountains?
You're in the Ozarks there, aren't you?
The Ozarks,
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so you're up there in the Ozarks, and you didn't see any snow, but you did see cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was really miserable.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how much emphasis did they put on discipline and following orders?
Very much.
Okay. So
they didn't let you get away with anything if they could catch you. And some guys knew how to manipulate, but some of us that were kind of greenhorn, we didn't know. You know, we don't dare do this because we might get caught.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, they really emphasize, you know, the discipline and remembering your orders and all that kind of stuff.
All right. So how long did the basic training last?
8 weeks.
Okay. And what happened at the end of those 8 weeks?
And they had a what they call the second 8 weeks. Some of the guys were on a train headed out east or west or wherever, and to go to some other camp. And some guys are, I don't know if I want to be fortunate, say I was fortunate enough, but I stayed right there. And they had the second 8 weeks of basic training.
Okay.
And
what did those 8 weeks consist of?
just in advance of the first 8 weeks, more marching, more getting basic rules and regulations in, and then they'd show you some movie where some guy had gonorrhea and that kind of stuff.
Okay, but it's still just general training for any part of the Army, pretty much?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not specialized engineer training or anything else like that?
No.
Okay, just
Because we were in the engineers right from day one.
Okay.
And then we would stay right there and do our thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the end of 8 weeks, the second 8 weeks, at the end of that, then some more guys would be heading off this way or that way or east, west, or you know what. So, but
But what did they do with you?
then I was just a mechanic, diesel mechanic. You have your, what did they call it? You give you a number, not a serial number, but a number.
Yeah, an MOS number is what they call it,
MOS.
yeah.
And mine was 13, it's been so many years ago now, 13, 16 or something like that. And that would meant that I was a diesel mechanic.
Okay,
And,
all right. But you're staying at Leonard Wood?
I stayed right at Leonard Wood all the time,
Okay.
except when I came home.
Sure. Okay. Now, as a diesel mechanic, what kind of equipment did you work on?
Oh, we worked on case equipment. We worked on graders, big road graders, and backhoes. We had what they call Laterno. I can still remember those. Laterno. Some guy in Texas. He was going to compete with Case and some of these other ones.
Mm-hmm.
He built backhoes, rubber-tired outfits, and they would run off. Each wheel had its electric motor, and that would drive them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were something else to work on. They were miserable, and nobody really enjoyed working on any of them because they were always breaking down. Had a lot of trouble with them. But the guy in Texas, Laterno, that was his name,
Mm-hmm.
Laterno, from Texas, and he built those things, and he managed to know somebody in Washington, D.C., I think, and pretty soon they were all over everywhere, Laterno.
Now, was the idea there that you had separate drive for each wheel so it could be a better off-road vehicle? Was that the...
Oh, yeah. Separate drive, you know, they're all electric. All you did is sit there and push switches.
Mm-hmm.
And make this one go or that one go or all of them go. Or,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a good thing for somebody who wanted to learn how to run one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a decent machine. They were usually kept up pretty decent shape, but anything that the trouble they had with them, they just too bad.
Mm-hmm. It was just harder to fix because it wasn't the same design as the
Right,
diesel-powered vehicles.
Like with the bulldozer,
Mm-hmm.
with the tracks on them. Well, these didn't have any tracks; they just had four wheels, big rubber tired wheels.
Okay. So, and basically, did you spend your whole time in the Army then, at least while you're on duty, at that one base?
Yeah,
Okay.
all the time.
All right. So, what was your daily routine like?
I'll get up at what was it 5:30 in the morning. You get up and retreat or reveille, and then at night you retreat, blow the bugle and the outfit, and everybody's supposed to stand at attention, and it's a lot of them just ignored it. But we had one time, one time in the fort. We didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it. Boy, that was the only time I ever knew that anybody could keep a secret without leaking out.
Mm-hmm.
They had, because we had about 45,000 guys in the fort, and they came through. They had different guys went through every barracks and the whole fort. Went through and they'd open their wall or foot locker, and if you didn't like it, well, it was too bad because we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking for some guy that he or they caught this sergeant and castrated him. They didn't like him.
Yeah.
So they fixed him. And he never did find out who it was, or nobody that we knew. But he evidently did something that they didn't like, and they said, "We'll fix you," and they did.
Okay. So basically, this was a large-scale criminal investigation that happened
It
when they
was
go.
them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
all
tell
that.
you, they come into that barracks. Everybody hit the inspection team.
Mm-hmm.
They all hit exactly. They must have set their watches by it, because they all hit the barracks at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and every barracks and every building, and so they had hit it all in 15, 20 minutes. They're gone,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was something else, but I didn't realize. I guess that the secrets could be kept if they
Yeah.
have the right people.
All right. Now, I had asked you about your daily routine, and so you talked about the beginning and the end of the day. What do you do during a typical workday?
Just work out in the shop on the equipment, just like a mechanic in the garage here.
Okay.
That was my 5 days, 5 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and not always on a Saturday, but Monday through Friday, and sometimes on Saturday. We'd be out there working in the shop.
All right. Now, did they ever send you out on any kind of field exercise or bivouac, or did you just get to stay on the base?
One time we went on bivouac and had a shelter half, what they called a shelter half, where two guys each had a half a canvas, and they would hook them together, and that would give you your shelter. And Colder and old Billy, and the company commander, he was one of the better ones that I had. He was a captain, and he'd been in since the Second War, and which was just a few years ago, then.
Right.
And he says, "I'm telling you guys, you better get every canned heat that you can get a hold of, and any heavy clothes if you want to keep warm, because it's going to be cold out there tonight. And when you get out there in the shelter house, there's not much heat."
Mm-hmm.
And so we listened to him, and it's a good thing we did, because most of us are still around.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, that was an interesting couple of days there, that shelter half and those things. ours, we had a canned heat inside trying to keep warm, and the thing caught the end flap on fire, and so you didn't want to let anybody know that you had a fire, so you kept it out of the way, put the fire out, or right away. But so then we had that shelter half when he got ready to pack up to go back to the fort, and we made sure that that was inside somehow.
Yes, you fold it inside so they can't see it.
So when you turned it in, well, you hope nobody that you knew got it.
Right.
So.
Okay. Now, was there, when you were out on that bivouac, did you have any work to do, or did you just kind of sit around and let other people do things?
We had not a whole lot of work to do, because except for rifle practice, that was a mainstay down there.
Okay.
For everybody and everything, practice with your rifle, and then you'd eat everything bivouac. Everything was cooked right out on the field in the garbage cans, what we call them garbage cans, and you'd sit there with a scoop and you'd dip out something and hope that it was good to eat, which it was. But other than that, no, you pretty much did your own thing on bivouac, and
Okay.
just a couple days, and then it was all all done.
Okay, so they weren't really doing any kind of engineering project or anything
No,
like that. You were
nothing.
just
We
getting
weren't.
some time in the field.
There was engineers, and the what was the other? The other was engineers, but it was a different title, and they're the ones that went out and built bridges.
Right.
And we never did any of that stuff. So we
Okay.
just furnished the equipment that they could use to build a bridge. So
All right. Now, while you're living out there, was there a town nearby that people could go to?
no, nothing.
All right.
No.
So,
Down in Leonard Wood, Fort Leonard Wood, which was on Highway 66 at that time. You don't remember that because you're too young,
I know what Route 66 was, yeah.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it was right. You come down 66 and then you make a left turn and it goes right into the fort. And so then eventually I got my car down there, because I figured, they said this is where you're going to be, so I brought my car down, went home and got it, took it down there, and and I had it all the time until I went home, and I had my car there and took another guy to Hudsonville, and then I went home and we were all done. So it.
All right. Now, when you had the car on the base, where would you go when you went off base?
When I went off,
Yeah.
then it was a little town of Waynesville on 66. It was about the size of Spring Lake, maybe. But a lot of troops or the guys, and they could get a pass to off post. Then they could go to Waynesville, which was legal.
Right.
And but they had that all done and taken care of, and so we just went down. I had the car, and then if somebody wanted to go to town, I'd say jump in. In fact, a kid, I got the Tribune sent to me down there, and in the Tribune there was Dick Robison is in Fort Leonard Wood, and he was a sergeant, and I thought, and they gave his company, so I got in my car and I drove over to the company where he was, and I says, Dick Robison around here? Yeah, he's doing KP duty in mess hall. I says, he's a sergeant. He's not supposed to be doing any of that. Well, he is. I thought, well, maybe he did something wrong, but so I went in the mess hall, and here he was, scrubbing pots and pans, and I I says, come on, change your clothes. I says, come on, we'll go for a ride. Oh, I can't. I gotta stay, come on. So we went back to the barracks and he changed his clothes and jumped in the car and we right out through the gate, because I had the car and a sticker on the windshield says he's legal. So right out the gate we went and down the highway, and boy, he says, I haven't got a pass, I haven't got anything, I says, don't worry about it. So we went down on 66 and I took him into the big town of Waynesville, and he says, boy, that's it? I says, yeah, that's it. And so he was kind of surprised that as big as the fort is in a little bitty stinking town on 66, and the main street of Waynesville was Highway 66. The town was split.
Right.
And I thought, boy, oh boy, and something else. But
So did your friend get in trouble for leaving the base, or did
No.
they never catch you?
no, they don't bother you. As long as you got a car with a sticker on it, they aren't going to bother you, and they never did.
Okay.
And,
Did Waynesville have a lot of bars and things like that for the
Few.
soldiers? Yeah.
Yeah, a few bars and what was there, two movie theaters or three movie theaters, I can't remember anymore or what, but they had a few bars, which I never patronized them much. So, but that worked out pretty good for me down there, and different guys that we'd on a Sunday or Saturday or Sunday or whatever, he'd take off down 66. So that one time I said, I got a friend that's in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I said, you want to ride along? We'll go visit him. Yeah, sure. So one guy says so. He jumped in the car and down 66. We went to Fort Sill, and I was in uniform then. I don't know why, because I hardly ever wore uniform when I was off the base. But I had my uniform on and got out of my car, and I said something to the MP about, where do you know where this company is? And he says, yeah. He says, why are you out of uniform? I says, out of uniform? I says, I'm not out of uniform. I says, this is what we wear up there in Leonard Wood. Oh, he looked at my patch and said, oh, okay. So, but everybody else is in the suntans down there because it's in a warmer climate. And we were still in the winter stuff, gabardine.
Right.
And I thought, oh shoot, I thought I got hung before I ever got out of there, but everything worked out fine.
Do you remember how long it took to drive from Leonard Wood to Fort Sill? And was it most of the day, or
Oh no.
just a couple hours? Or?
You get on the highway, on 66, you could just let her rip.
Okay.
At that time.
Because I guess it's just southwest Missouri to northwest Oklahoma, or northeast Oklahoma, I guess. So yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Now you were talking about your captain at one point, and the fellow who was captain when you had the bivouac, you said he was one of the better ones. Now,
Yeah.
did you have other commanders while you were there? You had that captain. Were there other officers you remember at all?
He was that's the only the only one I can think of I had at that company.
Okay.
Then when I got transferred to a different one, well, then we had a different company commander. But this guy here, you just don't forget him, Captain Gullickson.
Okay.
Was his name.
All right.
And he was one of the nicest guys, I think. And he had nothing to lose or nothing to gain. He says, I'm a captain, and that's good enough for me. So that's all he ever, as far as I know, that's as far as he ever went.
Okay. All right, but he's commanding an engineer company, and in the
Right.
engineers, there's only a limited number of places to go past that.
Right.
Okay. Now, when you transferred from one company to another, did your duties change at all? Did you do
No.
the same work in both companies?
Same duty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That I went on a medical, not a medical, but to the what do you call it? And anyway, for something I don't know, I hurt something or
Mhm.
did something, but anyway, I had to go go to the hospital for something, and and they said when you go back to your company, there won't be anybody there. I says, what? He said they were all gone. And so I come back to my company and walked in the orderly room, and I says, where is everybody? Oh, they all got shipped here and there, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden they were gone. The whole company was completely vacant.
Right.
And I says, well, how am I supposed to get over from here to that other place where I have to report? Oh, we'll give you a ride in a deuce and a half.
Mhm.
So just put your stuff in there, and so I did. And a couple minutes there, a few minutes later, then we were over there at that other company, and I thought, what are these? These are different kind of barracks, and 2 officers' barracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, huh, that's different. And I says, the guy in the orderly room, he says, now go through the first barracks. Don't stop there. Just go through it. And the second barracks, and find a room. If you find a room with 1 bed, you better grab that other bed in there, because they're going to be crowded.
Mm-hmm.
2 men to a room. So I did, and I walked through one and the second one, and walked in there, and you couldn't lock the doors. You had to leave the doors unlocked. And walked in there, and yeah, here's a bunk and a bed, or a bunk and a little table and a chair. And I thought, well, I guess this is where I'm going to be. So I hauled my stuff in there, and then when the guys came in from duty, this guy come in there, and he says, look, and he said, what are you doing in here? I says, this is where I'm going to stay. Oh, okay. And what's your name? And I told him, and he says, where you from? I says, Grand Haven, Michigan. He says, you are? I said, yeah. He said, well, so am I. I thought, well, good luck, you know. And so I says, how long you got to go before you get out? Oh, he says, just a short time. He says, maybe a month, then I'll get discharged.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh. So and I stayed right there. After he left, I stayed in that room and had their whole room to myself.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many months did you have left then?
At that time, 6 or 8, something
Okay.
like that.
All right. So you were not there as long as you were with the first company?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, you mentioned there was a point when a lot of the guys you had originally trained with, or some of them, came back through Fort Leonard Wood.
To get out, yeah.
So what do you remember about that?
Well, I asked the company commander, who we had at that time. He was an idiot. He was a captain too, but he was an idiot. And he had a Mercury convertible, black. And he used to like to sit out there and run. Or just sit out in the parking lot. Had the thing, a spare tire mounted on the back trunk. And he thought he had something, I guess. And I thought, well, whatever. He wasn't one to be screwed around with.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, here he come with a wooden hand, that he had in the wood shop, and he had it cut out, had a post on it. So if he catch anybody in the company with their hands in their pockets, here's the hand. You carry this around until you can find somebody else that you can give it to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day it disappeared, and somebody said that I think it went into the furnace. But he was something else. I'd say finally I don't know what section they gave him, but he was gone.
Okay, so there really was something wrong with him.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Now, I was asking about guys coming back from
Right.
the end of their tours or that kind of
Yes.
thing. And so did you see any of them or learn
Oh,
anything
yeah.
about them?
Well, then I asked my company commander, I says, can I go get a job in the PX? Have something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And every night I could work in the PX. And he says, yeah, he give me a permit to show it and take it in there. And so I got a job in the PX, and the first night, here come this one kid come in there, and I thought, boy, he looks familiar. And I got talking to him, and he says, what are you doing in here? I said, I work here. Oh, yeah, that's nice. And I says, weren't you in the company that we came down there from Michigan? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Grand Haven. Yeah, he says, so am I. And we got talking. Well, then we ended up. He says, why don't you move in with me? I says, move in with you? Yeah, he says, I'm in an officer's barracks just down here. And he says, you want a new foot locker? He says, I can get you a new foot locker. I says, no, I don't think so. Not this short time. I said, I'm not looking for trouble. And so when we got ready to leave the fort, then we had his stuff and my stuff in the trunk, and the car was kind of going like that down the road. And he says, boy, I guess it's a good thing we didn't think about taking those foot lockers. I says, yeah, right. So, but we got out of there all right. He says, now, they had us in review before he got out. We were all standing up there waiting, you know, and this guy got up and he says, now remember, you guys are still in the service till midnight tonight. Don't do something foolish and end up back here. And I thought, no, I'm not gonna.
Mm-hmm.
So we drove, we got out of there. It was, I don't know, 5 o'clock at night, I think, when they finally released us.
Mm-hmm.
And we down 66 to St. Louis, and we got going, and I says, you want to stop in a motel someplace, or you want to just keep going? Because I says, to me it made no difference if I drove all night or we stayed in a motel. Well, he says, as long as we're going, he says, and things aren't bad, let's just keep going. So I said, okay. So and this is in December again, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and what you could expect any kind of weather. So we kept right on driving, and we just stayed right till I got to Hudsonville the next morning, and I took him to his house and dropped him off and all his stuff, and I headed to Grand Haven, and so my folks were glad to see me, and which I was in 24 months in Leonard Wood.
Mm-hmm.
32 times I came home.
How did you manage to get home that many times?
Just jump in the car, and
Okay. So,
weekend pass, you know, you could go to St. Louis.
okay.
Well, weekend pass to some of us, well, that could be Michigan.
Mm-hmm. So you spent
hope you don't get in a wreck or something goes haywire.
So you were used to driving straight through then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I came home, when was it, over Easter, and I think it was. I came home, and I was going to get a different car from Rediker Ford Motor over here,
Mhm.
and I was going to buy a different car. I went in and I says, "What have you got? New one." He says, "Oh, the only thing I got right now is this black two-door, 6-cylinder." I says, "That's it?" He says, "Oh, that's it." I says, "Oh, I guess I'll take that then." So when I went back to the fort and I had that black 6-cylinder, and that was was it Easter, around Easter time?
Mhm.
And then in October, I was driving down 66, went by a garage there, and they had a convertible sitting there. So I says, that was a 53, and this black one was 54.
Mhm.
And I says, "How you trade?" Well, he says, "That's a 53, and then I've got a 53, and yours is a 54, a new one." I says, "Yeah, so." I says, "You trade even up?" He says, "Okay." And so I traded him even up, and when I traded that Ford off from Easter till October, it had 17,000 miles on it. So it didn't stand still too much.
Right. Okay.
So,
Now, to think back at the time that you spent at the fort, are there other events or things that kind of stand out in your mind that you haven't brought into the story yet?
we had, one time we had the, what the heck did they call that? The entertainment would come in.
USO?
USO came one time, came into the fort, and they were at the big auditorium, and it's the only time I ever saw anybody from USO.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Did they bring in anybody famous, or?
I can't remember
All right.
who they were.
Okay, you had that. Now, on the base, did they have movies and things like that?
Oh, we had 6 theaters on the base,
Okay.
the big theaters too. They weren't just little things. They made a war movie. They made a war movie on Leonard Wood, or in Leonard Wood, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That and they built a bridge over this creek, and that bridge was as smooth as glass because they were running their equipment back and forth on it. They were taking that movie,
Mm-hmm.
and this all it was all right there at that creek. But I tell you, to see the thing, then they were going to show it in Leonard Wood before it went out to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down there to the theater and we watched it. And then guys in there, "Give it to them! Hey, give it to them!" They'd holler,
Mm-hmm.
and pour it to them. And as he said, they thought that was something to see, because if you didn't know it was there, you would think it was a real movie,
Mm-hmm.
a real war picture.
Mm-hmm.
But we all knew what it was and who made it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was something to see. I mean, we used to patronize the theaters quite a bit, so have something to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, did they have enlisted men's clubs on the base where they could serve beer, or did they not do that?
Oh yeah, we had that officers' barracks I was telling you about earlier. Well, right out the side door of the officers' barracks and walk about 100 feet was our EM club, enlisted men's club. And I thought, boy, if this ain't the nuts, boy. So you go down across the walk and in there, and they had a guy in there working behind the bar, and just like in a tavern here in town, and so they had this thing going, and he said, "Give me a beer, okay?" And I thought, boy, this isn't bad at all, And then I had just a room over there, and the officers club here, or EM club, and it worked out. You know, we had plenty of places where you could go to get beer or whatever if you wanted to on the fort. So.
All right. Okay. And then once you got back home, who did you go to work for?
I went back and started working for the city again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got out, then I was working, what was it, 2 days or 1 day after I got discharged. I was already working. Then I was in the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a full-time job in the fire department as soon as I got home.
All right. And did you eventually wind up with a phone company, or?
Yeah, and what year was it? I had, trying to think now what, can't remember.
No, that's okay. But
yeah, I was working in the fire department. Well, then that was in May of '53.
or 53, you were in the armies. 55, maybe, after you're out.
50, I'm sorry, 55.
Yep.
Yeah. When you get to be 86, you know, it kind of stuff doesn't stick with you too good. And so I told the fire chief, I says, I'm gonna quit pretty quick, because I said I'm gonna go work for the phone company. Oh, you don't want to do that. And I says, well, I'm gonna. He said, okay, you know. So I quit, and they had a party for me. And then I went over to Grand Rapids and started working in Grand Rapids for the phone company, and then eventually I transferred back to Grand Haven, and I saw a girl come by the fire department there when I was working, and I thought, she's pretty good looking. I wonder if she goes out or whatever. Well, eventually we got married, and we had 3 kids, and then we got divorced, and I remarried B in here, and my ex-wife, she died. She had cancer, and she died. So, but other than that, that's about it.
All right. Now, when you think back to the time that you spent in the service, do you think you learned anything from that, or changed at all because you did that?
No, I think you learn I think anyway, respect for the upper crust, or, you know, your bosses or whoever, and you don't just shun them off. But as far as learning anything, I don't think I really learned a whole lot, because like most of the guys that were there for 2 years, and then I'm going home.
Yeah.
And
you basically had a day job.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I'd go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and at the shop, and 5 o'clock you'd come back to the barracks and take a shower and go eat, go to the mess hall and have something to eat. And when I had my car there, I just go in, get in the car, and head out.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, actually, you did a good job of telling us a lot about what that life was like, and I got to learn things from it. So I'd just like to close out here by thanking you for taking the time to talk to me today.
That's quite all right. That's a whole hour, huh? Or just
Pretty close.